just for some background information, beginning with the fiscal year 2025 budget year, districts are required to have 2 hearings. The first is a hearing on the proposed property taxes to be levied. The second is the actual hearing to adopt the budget, with the board approving the budget after the second hearing. Prior to 2025 budget adoption, school boards published and adopted the budget in one meeting. Beginning with the 2025 budget year, boards must hold a public hearing on a proposed tax levy. This hearing is to be a unique and separate meeting and be the only item on the agenda per the Iowa Department of Management. There's no action to be made at this hearing. That's the meeting I'm talking about right now. This proposal specifically is a decrease of the property tax levy to no more than 13.07078 per thousand of taxable valuation. The current levy is 13.81829. This decrease is 0.74751 per thousand, or 5.41%. That's it? I don't. Okay. This meeting is adjourned. That was the fastest meeting I've ever had. Okay. Now, on to the regular board meeting. Oh, I would, but I just closed my. Sorry, closed the wrong button. I call the regular meeting to order. Please rise for the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming?
Whose broad stripes and bright stars
Through the perilous fight,
o'er the ramparts we
were
watched,
so
gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. Next up is the roll call. All board members are present except Director Potts, so that should be recorded. Thank you. Next up, mission and vision statement. Director Yonke, would you please read the mission and vision statement?
Mission statement: the Davenport Community School District is dedicated to growing excellence in academics, the arts, and athletics for every child by ensuring the highest quality education in an environment shaped by our diverse community, preparing our students to be lifelong learners and productive citizens. Vision statement: education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you. Director Barnes, would you please read the guiding principles?
Yes, guiding principles. Opportunity. We provide abundant opportunities to empower students to reach their full potential academically, creatively, and socially. Collaboration. We foster an environment that allows students, families, and community stakeholders to come together for the betterment of our students' education and future. Transparency. We share relevant and important information with our students, families, and the community to maintain open and productive communication.
Thank you. Superintendent, would you please read the goals?
Goal number 4, focus, foster the innovative use of finance, facilities, and staff.
Thank you. I'm now going to open another public hearing for the purposes of approval of the 95% plans and specifications for the North New Athletic Communication Infrastructure Project. 95% plans and specifications are complete for the project and available for review. The bid opening for this project is scheduled for May 6, 2026, with approved bids scheduled for the May 11, 2026 school board meeting. The estimated cost of construction is $400,000. Work is to be substantially completed by August 14th, 2026. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak on this? Seeing none, this hearing is closed. I don't see it on my notes, but I think now I should have a motion on this.
Madam Chair,
Director Poston.
move the board approve the plans and specifications for the North New Athletics Communication Infrastructure Project as shown in the 95% plans and specifications.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call vote. Director Barnes,
My vote is yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Yonke,
Yes.
Director Poston,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. Motion carries. Student board members, we do not have any here today. Next up is presentation, FMPC board presentation, Superintendent.
Thank you. Tonight is the culmination of the section of Phase 2, where a member from every building, a community member, a family member from every building, and a staff member from every building came together to answer some questions that we put forth to them around special education, preschool, and programming in our district. And the conversations were very lively. They led to some paths that we might not have anticipated. But again, when our community comes together, the ideas are always richer. So before we get started, if you guys wouldn't mind doing some brief introductions, we have one of our most loyal facility master planning members with us tonight, who has been a champion for children in the Davenport School District and really helped make sure that we're focusing on the right things. So let's do some brief introductions, and then John, take it over, please.
My name's Tess Farmer, and I am the representative for Madison Elementary, and I have a first grade student there as well.
And you know me, I've been here many times. We had a very lively conversation this spring with our FMPC group, and I think first and foremost, just to start everything, if our representative wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about the experience.
So it has been very informative, for sure. I learned a lot about the school district as a whole. I also got the opportunity to talk to other parents and see what some of their struggles were, some of their concerns were. And it was also very eye-opening to talk to staff, because as parents, the things that we see as obstacles or the things that we see as struggles, or that we think is, oh, that's the clear best outcome. But when you take it into a staff perspective, there are other obstacles that parents don't always think of. So that was It was very interesting, and I feel a lot. I feel a lot better informed and better educated on the inner workings of the school district as a whole after being part of the committee.
So, what is it that we did? So we started with this idea that the Davenport School District has long been identified as a district of distinction. But there's been some new language with the portrait of a graduate, and we asked the question of, does this make sense? Are we still in a good spot as a district of distinction, and what does that mean? And so it really kind of came back to this regional pathway. So we have our schools organized with this elementary to middle to high school progression. It's not as clean as my list works, but it's pretty close. However, at the same time, with this regional pathway, we also have this idea that our high schools have this distinctive orientation. So we know that Davenport West has a whole progression of elementary and middle schools, but then also the high school is known as the kind of the CTE campus. Central is our arts campus. North is the associates program, and our Mid-City High School is our kind of our alternative ed. And so we wanted to ask the question, does this district of distinction and the regional pathway and the way we identify as a school district, does it all still make sense, and does it create confusion or limit exposure to what our high schoolers or even our middle schoolers or elementary schools would be prepared for? And just to highlight, it's a complicated question. The reason our courses are the way they are at Central, West, and North is because there's a lot of them. And so, for example, on the left-hand column, the dual enrollment college credit program requires you to start day one when you start high school. And if you don't start that, you don't fit the sequence and you won't get through all of the coursework. At West, we have a lot of capstone coursework for our CTE. It's hard to replicate that elsewhere. So then the question is, if my student goes to Central but wants to take capstone work at West, does it work? Can they? Do they have exposure? If our students at North want to be more tied to some of the arts programming at Central, do they have that opportunity? And so that started the conversation. And trust me when I say, TJ can reinforce this, we didn't think these were the questions we were asking when we met this group. We discovered this by putting it all on the screen in front of everyone. So that group kind of came back with some really hearty conversation. And so the key themes of that was, we feel that our students need more opportunities for exposure to all sorts of programming. It's hard for everyone to understand that a student at 8th grade level needs to decide what high school they're going to go to and what program they're going to take without having more exposure to trying what those opportunities might be. And so just having more time to figure it out, more exposure to trying some things, and even having time throughout their school day in high school just to try things. There was a lot of discussion, and feel free to jump in where you can, a lot of discussion about communication. The district, we all know, does a great job putting a lot of information out there. At the same time, when you're on the receiving end, it's hard to filter it all out to say, this is what's important, or this is how I can disseminate this information. And so that really got confusing when we talked about that 8th grade selection to high school. Like, just really hard to understand how to navigate the process or how to help their students with that selection, to the point of not even understanding what programming might be available after that selection. Our committee members thought that anywhere where our business and community can help with the district. So bringing opportunities, giving opportunities for students, looking at work-based learning opportunities, those type of interactions they felt would help our students be better prepared for entering their next phase of life. Life skills, they talked a lot about students needing real world life skills so that when they graduate from school, if they're going to move into the next phase, they're able to handle their finances, know how to work on teams, understand some of those basic skills that can help them be a full functioning adult. When we talked about the regional pathway, the committee liked it. They like that idea that when you live on the east side of Davenport, you know you're working towards Central High School, and those students are going to be Blue Devils. They really embrace that. The same with the west side and the north side, knowing that you have this path where you might be going to Wood and then north. They really like that, and it's the identity of their community and their kids' friend groups. So a student might be more inclined to pick North High School if they live on the North region because they're going to stay with their friend groups. It's familiar and comfortable, and so there's more at the decision level just with that pathway than anything. However, that sort of led to this idea that if we had the opportunity to have access to some of the programming that's available at the other schools, that would be good. And if we had the ability to try things earlier, down into middle school, maybe even as early as 5th grade, it would help us understand some of the options that become available at high school so that we might be better informed about what kind of decision our students might want to take. So there was a lot of conversation about this, and there's even more to it than what's on the screen, but this gives you kind of a cliff notes. So we decided we should ask others. So we asked students all the same questions, and we got a lot of the same answers. And we went to each of the high schools, all 4 of them. Those students felt like their opportunities were limited, meaning they didn't really understand what it took to make a decision at 8th grade. They felt like if they were well into 9th grade before they had to decide what they wanted to invest in with their studies, that would be better later than early. They wanted more opportunity to see and try things. However, they highlighted that their schedules are very packed, so they can't always fit in all the things they want to try. And then there's sometimes this complication of I want to take an advanced art class, but it requires me to take 2D and 3D art, which I already had at 8th grade level. Now I feel like I'm repeating. And so sometimes the prerequisites for electives bar them from fitting everything into their schedule. And so it creates this complication with actually being able to explore. Students felt like communication was a problem for them. So understanding how to make high school selection, navigate that pathway, understand even the steps once in high school of how am I prepared for my next step? How do I get through a college application process? How do I move towards embarking on a career? So students felt like that communication could be better. A lot of them were asked, are you taking college credit classes right now? And lots of the students we asked were. They didn't fully understand anything other than it made college credits available for free at their level. So just this idea that you could get a full college degree or get as many credits as possible, they don't always connect it all together. There was a lot of commentary from the students about counseling and just not having good access or feeling like they had good access to counseling. They didn't feel like their schedule management was easy to handle, and they didn't get a lot of support or mentoring from whether it's counselors or adults just to help them figure it out. Students also reinforce what the parents said. They like their regional pathway. And a lot of what they decide when moving from middle school to high school is staying with friend groups, staying in that region where they've grown up, where it's familiar and comfortable. What's really interesting of the students is when you put them all in a room together and you said, okay, so if some kid from this other high school came to your school, would that be cool or not? And they were like, yeah, they could come to our school. We'd welcome them. What if you went to their school? Oh yeah, that'd be fine. They said that when they're all together and they're not competing against one another, they see themselves as one Davenport. So not this oppositional thing all the time. Generally, it's Davenport against Bettendorf or Davenport against PV. They are Davenport together. And so that led them to sort of talk about if they could access some of the programming at the other schools, they would really embrace that, whether it's virtual option or travel to the school, just to be able to have access to some of that advanced coursework. They also felt that if they could get access to that early, down into their middle school years, that would be better as well. So we're starting to catch a theme. We decided to talk to staff. And so we brought in all of our specialty programming. So our CTE, our business, our college accreditation, our arts, and we had a conversation about all of the same points. And again, the same kind of themes rung through. A lot of our staff acknowledged that students have limitations on their schedules. They too felt like students could benefit from more time with exploratory. They acknowledged that counselors are busy and there's not always an ability to work with the students to the full extent. And then there's also a kind of a second thing where the student might want something, the parent might want something for their student, and the counselor is stuck in between. So there's that person in the middle situation there. The staff also, and this was just the college credit one on the slide, they also agreed that communication could be better. They know that they send out lots of information, and being able to streamline and improve that would be beneficial. Our career pathway programs, again, you're going to see a whole lot of acknowledgement of some of these same things. But what we really found with our staffs is rather than become defensive about what was being said about all of this, they really started to jump in and start ideating how to solve this. Like, what if we could, or how about if we could think about this way? And so we got a lot of commentary that, again, staff feeling that students should have a lot of exposure to programming earlier, likely down into the 7th grade level. And when it came to especially CTE, a lot of the teachers said if my students could learn the basics down at a middle school level, then I can teach them the advanced stuff at high school. But when they come to me without some of that early training, and I have to teach them how to use a hammer, that's counterproductive towards the progression to the advanced work they're doing. And they were willing to talk about how the middle schools and the high schools could work together to become sort of co-owners of the programming. So you get this progression from 7 through 12. So that would allow for a better progression and a better exploration for the students. When it comes to opportunity, our staff talked about a lot of considerations of how they think students could gain opportunity, but likely the theme that made the most sense is building a set of programming vertically so that it starts down at somewhere in the 7th grade level, heavy exploration from 7 through 9, And then from 9 to 12, really focusing more towards that capstone coursework. So the staff really talked about you'd almost have to start at 12th grade and work your way all the way back down to 7th grade to get a good sense of how that programming could work. There's a lot of other stuff here, but there's more in the presentation, so I'll keep moving. So,
If I could
yeah,
just
go ahead.
add on to that, one of the things that started percolating in each group was the room in kids' schedules to truly explore. That was a hot topic, but nobody wants to give anything up, even the students that, and so what does it look like to earn 2 credits at once, or what, getting creative around the classes that we have. There seemed to be room in each one of the areas, each one of the focus groups, to kind of start talking about that. And that was very intriguing to me, that I didn't see that one coming. I also didn't see coming that the kids like being in each other's schools. I thought for sure there'd be more rivalry with that, but it's very apparent if you look at the all district musical. Those kids are really good friends. It was an excellent production. It went really well, and those were the examples that were given. And I think the language that they used is unified against the common enemy when we're playing other districts, and so they had a lot of spirit around that. But the "We Are Davenport" was very loud and clear.
Absolutely. And I think we got that from the parents too. TJ's comment about the sort of the dual opportunities from learning. One of the best examples was somebody teaching construction trades saying, why doesn't this count towards math? I'm teaching somebody how to do geometry, right? If I'm building something plumb and square, it requires Pythagorean theorem, because a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's how you validate a square in construction. And yet the way our programming works doesn't quite align that way, right? So when we first sat down with this group, the sentence at the top of the screen is what we asked for. We said, what does future ready look like for our students? And we were really trying to get a sense of, like, what is it going to take for us to think about what the outcoming student wants to look like and what that informs for our programming within the district. What we uncovered was all this other stuff about the complications of the regional pathway and the access to learning. And so this is a lengthy process. You likely have a process that touched something to the neighborhood of 150 to 200 people because of all the different group sessions we did. So this is not a select committee only. This is a broad swath of the district having a voice in this. There were 3 deep conversations with the FMPC group, 4 high school focus group sessions, 2 different sessions with high school faculty and staff. We had multiple leadership team sessions. And so your common themes that you're hearing from these are really surprising because they were all different sessions from different people. The leadership team originally was prepared for hearing that the district of distinction might be a problem for people. Like, why does this school get this and this school get that? And we actually heard quite the contrary. We were surprised that people like the regional pathway and they appreciate the identity that each school has in that district of distinction. What they really strived was just access to it, whether it be through some virtual connection, through some exploratory options, or the ability for students to move between buildings just to have access. And that's where a lot of this stemmed. So the families and students, again, the takeaways, there's a lot of confusion about how the process works and how the communications come to them. All groups felt that there just needed to be more equity in the access to the programming at our schools. Everyone kind of reaffirmed that we don't see that you need to duplicate programming at the schools. So you don't need to make all 3 schools a CTE center, for example. It's just increasing the opportunity and exposure to the programming for our students. And then change. So this idea that my students start in a program but might want to shift to this other is seen as a barrier. And then scheduling, just this idea that TJ talked about where they're packed full and we can't seem to do it all for them. And so that's seen as a barrier for them. So out of that, what does a recommendation become? It becomes a recommendation for the board to talk more about this, because I think what we really found is this is going to take something more than just some physical change. What we really kind of came back to is that the regional pathway, the district of distinction, the way our high schools are set up, the portrait of the graduate, these all coexist, and they're beneficial for the qualities of what a student produced by Davenport schools means to the families in the district. However, the stakeholders all feel that communication between the district and the schools and the families and students can be improved in some manner. So more focused, more streamlined, some way to just make it easier to understand the information. The counseling process needs refinement and improvement just to enhance that student experience.
And I want to reiterate here this, because all throughout counseling and support for students came up, it wasn't an indictment on our counselors, because they're working their tails off.
Mm-hmm.
What it is we had the parents that came to this are the ones that read their email, do everything they can to get their kids scheduled in the way that they need to be scheduled. And they were missing a lot of information, and it was missing early on and I think to your point, when the parents would say that, the staff would say, well, this is what we do to make sure that we're communicating, and there's a gap there. And so it was fascinating to me, because we think we're doing everything we can to make sure that the kids know about what's available to them. Yeah. And the parents that were in this meeting are the ones that read their email, check Infinite Campus to make sure, all of the things. And so that was a big eye-opening experience for a lot of our district staff that were in that room. And again, the counseling process means just that. How do we improve the information that's going and not so much your social emotional learning, but your career pathways. And so that kind of came to light, and I wanted to clarify what that meant. And sorry, John.
And our counselors acknowledged what we were talking about and actually started to ideate ways to make that better from their perspective. Exposure to opportunities. So nearly all groups felt that when we're talking about what leads to high school capstone coursework, that exposure starts down around 7th grade. Keep in mind that not all of that exists right now. So that means some way of kind of vertically aligning that programming needs to happen. Students also felt that just the burdens of how those prerequisites and how course sequences are supposed to work needs to have some flexibility to give them more opportunity to try things as they work through high school. Also having some flexibility in their schedule to do things like job shadowing, college visits, just to get a look to what's beyond. I know some of that occurs, but they felt like if they had more access to that, it just will help them be better prepared. Students all felt like, when we talked to the high school students, they felt like they could be an asset to the district in terms of mentoring down at the middle school level. So they embraced this opportunity that they could help coach, or they could help provide some, insight or communication downward to the students that they once were. And so we talked about this mentoring between staff and student as being an opportunity to improve both the communication, the understanding, and the counseling. And so those interactions being vital can be a way to help improve this. And then that equity of access. So nearly all groups talked about the idea of travel or virtual learning to have an opportunity to gain access between schools. We all understand travel is difficult and hard to navigate. Virtual learning can be difficult, but they're all willing to try to help figure out how to make that work. Improvements to schedule management, we've talked about, but just being able to fit more things in. And then as TJ talked about, anywhere where we can think about how our coursework might satisfy multiple types of required credit so that that multiple credit course now satisfies some of our things, helping lighten the load so students have more opportunity to try things. And so that really became the list of things that the group wanted to present to the board, knowing that that's not any kind of recommended solution, but a recommendation to say, this is probably going to take some work. Other thoughts, TJ?
Is there any questions? Director Hayes?
Not really a question, a comment. Thank you, first of all, John. One thing that I've always questioned is from the various high schools. Of course, when you're in your area, you know this is my school, this is my home school, and you never too much think outside of the box. And I've often wondered how students with so much to offer, how are these decisions made? Am I going to go to my home school because it's here, or do I really like this? Do I like that? And I've often thought of the fact of maybe if there was like a field trip, like they said, or the virtual sessions, or even like a summer seminar or something where you would have the opportunity to tour these other schools and see all of these different things there. Before I make that decision, maybe 7th, 8th grade, I know at least what you have to offer. And then, you know, if I want to stay home, then of course that's what I do. But at least I'm clear on what I like and what I saw out there. And that has always been a burning question for me. Do you just go where you live, or have you even taken the time to explore other options?
Yeah, that's great commentary. And I think students even talked about that a little bit in when we talked to them. Just, you know, if they had the opportunity to tour and see ahead of time, they would have much preferred that.
They're really, I guess, not sure what they don't know.
Director Beck?
Yeah, a couple things. So first of all, thank you for this report, and I love how the common themes are really popping up, and the communication. Yeah, some days I'm just like another email, and other days it's like, wait, what? What's happening? I didn't know about that. So there's no perfect system yet, but I have a couple questions. So one of the issues with like upper level courses, and I think the students have kind of mentioned maybe a travel or virtual learning. One of the issues with things like AP courses is that we don't have the staff to run them at every school, and so they don't get offered at every school. So that's an area that might be a place to look for some of these expanded opportunities in terms of virtual, you know, even if it's a Zoom room on one campus and a classroom on the other or something like that. My other thought was that given the amount of time we've had the new schedule, it's doing pretty well, but looking for efficiencies would be, I mean, that's kind of, this is the right time to be doing that. My idea too, can we use media students to produce videos of like a day in the life of each high school? Because that A is a project, but B, you know, follow somebody around your high school for a day that does, you know, automotive and record that video, and then anyone in middle school can watch it, right? And it doesn't take a lot of time out of their day to do it. They can watch the video whenever. The other one is maybe leverage some AI for scheduling. One thing that AI is good for is organizing things. So maybe there's an opportunity there. I'm not recommending we pay for any extra software though. No, not at all. But anyway, just some thoughts, and I would love to see the all district musical happen again. I thought that was a brilliant idea and just a phenomenal activity.
Director Barnes.
I'm not sure question, but perhaps a comment. I sit up here and I'm conflicted between one Davenport and pathways. It concerns me, and one of the things that I feel is missing here is as we think about the pathways of our three high schools, and I'm not including Mid City in this. Where is four-year college preparation and academic excellence and rigor and changing the perception of this school district? I just, as I looked at this and everything would suggest that 75 to 85% of the careers of the future are going to require post-secondary education, and much of it 4-year. And I just don't feel this when we sort of gravitate towards these three pathways. And what I'm struggling with is I want to go to, we're hearing our students say, I want to go to school with my friend group and the kids who I've grown up with. But if these pathways become so defined and become preeminent to academic excellence, preparation for a 4-year degree, academic rigor, that troubles me. That the kids who want to be at West or want to be at North or want to be at Central and want to take all of the AP courses and are 4-year college bound, where do they fit in? I mean, and again, maybe it's a rhetorical question more than anything, but it just sort of feels like I just don't see the ambition. And while I love the one Davenport, heck, I would love to have one Davenport for our athletic teams and we dominate this state. Instead, we've got, 3 high schools that beat each other up, and then they get to the post-conference competition and can't compete elsewhere. So this is what I was feeling as I read this over the weekend, and as I'm hearing you think about, and perhaps there's not you talked about there's not a need for duplicated programming, but I would say that the duplicating program that ought to be preeminent in all of this is preparation for a 4-year college, because that's what our students need, and that's actually what our workforce needs. That's what our country needs. Every piece of data that you read about careers of the future say that we need to be doing more of that rather than less of that.
May I? Mm-hmm. So the passion that you bring to that was loud and clear in our committee too. Each one of our schools spoke to that as well, and they feel very confident that pathway exists inside of our schools. On May 4th, we're bringing forth that honors diploma that the board has requested us to see, that diploma +1 in every single one of our buildings, to where our students are being pushed to take the maximum level of classes to and through our bar and above and beyond. And so the problem that this group of people was solved was about our career pathways, because that's what the board kind of asked us to do, we believe. And it spread to our programming that we have. And so that is excellent feedback to make sure that that's out in front as well. Like I said, at the committee of the whole, we will be discussing our diploma plus, the direction that we plan to head in that for all of our schools. And I'm very excited about that. And I do agree with you that we need to continue to put the emphasis on that, because getting students ready for that experience to be able to excel is equally as important as anything else.
I appreciate that, and I thank you for that. I want to make sure in any dialogue we have here that that a career pathway is not just CTE education. A career pathway is something that is far more complex than that. And we just always need to keep that in mind. I can't say enough about our CT preparation and the investment that this school district makes and the excellence. And the Director Poston has pointed out many times that is one of the areas in our district which is overperforming and is excelling. But a career pathway today also includes preparation for a 4-year degree. So let's just make sure that we don't ever overlook that. And I'm not suggesting in any way that's being overlooked, but that's an important piece of this.
Thank you. Director Young.
Thank you. For starters, great information, and I love from the groups that came forward a common theme throughout. We were a family that one of our daughters participated in the dual enrollment, and we did not live in the north and still do not live in the north area. And access is a huge, huge issue. She had many friends that while some of us were able to pull together, they were not, and they were not able to go the dual enrollment path. And because when you would talk about, well, how will we get there? There wasn't support. And so this equity, this lack of access is a huge, huge issue within the schools. Not one I know you can solve. That's solving on our end. But I wanted to highlight that and put that on record, that we as a family and many families sacrificed and to get our kids, because that's how important the dual enrollment program was for us to get her there and to get her friends there to band together to do this. And some families are able to do that and some can't. And that is that equity right there. One idea to throw out the table out there is when you talk about they don't know how this will impact them, the dual enrollment I will speak to, is maybe you want to call back some of your graduates and come and sit down. I know our daughter talks about it quite frequently, the impact, where she's at, how it advanced her, the amount of money it saved her and our family with her up at Iowa, that there's a lot of talk and parents would want to hear this. Definitely that. And just to speak to Director Barnes, I stand with you. There are career paths, and this is definitely one of them that many times I feel gets overlooked as we're sitting at this table talking. So just to reiterate that. Thank you.
I would just like to thank you for giving your time to this committee. Obviously, were you on previous committees?
Sorry, forgot my button. I was on the one in the fall as well when we talked about the preschool and the special education. But other than that, no, this is all new to me.
But that's great. I'm glad that you're willing to give your time and input to the whole committee in the process. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Director Beck.
Just a follow up to kind of what Director Barnes and Director Youngke said. The college prep thing is a theme that's come up in a number of meetings, but typically when we're talking about curriculum or learning and supports rather than the pathways, because that's something that many of us think could be improved. But it's, so I guess for me, it wasn't so much missing from this, because this to me was more about sort of the nuts and bolts rather than the curriculum. But I agree, like making sure that everyone who wants to go to college has the opportunity to be prepared to go to college at every high school is, I think, important. Yeah.
That's it? Oh, Director Poston.
I'd just like to say that I sat in on all these meetings, and I appreciate the parents, the staff, students, everyone that took the time to participate in this, and it's very beneficial to the school district and to the board. And again, thank you, John, for facilitating all this, and appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just to kind of tie a bow on it, one of the things we do when we facilitate, and TJ hears me say this all the time, is we have to define the problem. And in my world, we call it problem seeking. And so this process was one of problem seeking. And all of your points kind of lend to that. And it's hard to not have a clear and distinct solution, but what we think we've done is open a door for consideration of future change within the district. And so what you've gained is the perspective of a lot of your constituency. And now it just requires that we have to roll up sleeves and do some hard work to figure out how to move it forward.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
I'm going to go backwards a little bit because we do have a student board member that showed up. So do you have some information to share? Or?
Sorry, I was at golf. But our show choir went to Branson, Missouri this weekend, and I think it was like a nationals type of thing, and they won. So, yeah.
And lots of students were recognized and got first place, and yeah, that was very cool.
Oh, also I have some comments about like the last thing.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay. I was gonna save them for the end, but like since we're already on the topic, I thought, why not? I remember talking to him because I was part of the group of students from Central that he was talking to. It was the school board, like the student school board reps, and then also our leadership team. And we really did agree on like everything that he mentioned. And I think it's a coincidence like worth acknowledging that like not just Central agreed on that, but like West and North did too. For the part where he was talking about like opportunities and like job shadowing, I think that opportunities are there if you seek it, because like I talked to my counselor about like wanting to job shadow a vet, and he gave me contacts and stuff. So not saying that's how it is for everyone, but that's just my personal experience with that. And the mentoring thing, like the student and student thing, at Central we have McKinley mentors and Garfield mentors, but I think it would be a good idea to go and expand to Sudlow, because that's a crucial time in development and like you're changing so much. And I think it would be great to have like an older student to look up to during that time. And to add to Director Barnes, I think that an aspect that I hear a lot from like not just teachers but also students is we need to build study habits in high school to carry out through college. And I think it needs to be focused on a lot more, because I think a lot of people just get by pretty easily in high school, and then when they get to college, it's like a wake-up call. So I think something needs to be thought of during that. So
Thank you. Appreciate that. Open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues, concerns. Individuals who want to speak, please fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The forum is available in hard copy for in-person attendees or on the school board page of the district's webpage for those who want to participate virtually. The virtual participants must email their request to, and this is a change, so if you're listening and you want to do this, board comments at mail.davenport.k12.ia.us by 3 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president may set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak, which is 2 minutes. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. You'll be asked to state your name and home address prior to making remarks. Please note that board meetings are recorded and the recordings are available online. We do have one open forum request, and that is Susan Berger, who is a museum volunteer, by the way. So come up and push the button, it'll turn green. State your name and address, and you're ready to go.
Thank you. My name is Susan Berger, live at 3625 Cedarwood Court in Bettendorf. I worked for the school district for 32 years, and now I volunteer at the school museum. And I'm going to take a little bit longer than 2 minutes because there's nobody else here. I haven't kept it off. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. Again, my name is Susan Berger, and I'm a volunteer with the school museum. I saw that there was a recent discussion on demolishing the old National Guard Administration building and the horse stable located by the Brady Street Stadium. Thought it might be appropriate to provide a little bit of background on these buildings. This is your daily history lesson. 3 buildings, an armory, the administration building, and the horse stable were built in 1916, not in the 1880s and not for a cavalry unit. In 1915, the unit was converted from infantry to artillery. The armory was on 5th Street between Main and Brady, which is now a parking lot, with horses kept along the levee. With the new designation of artillery, more space was needed, horses nearby, as they were to pull the big guns, the cannons, the caissons, etc. And you obviously didn't want that downtown. These buildings were paid for by local donations, not by the military or federal or state money. There was an unsolicited donation of $9,000, and 2,000 shares of $25 apiece was offered by the Davenport Artillery Holding Company. The school district started acquiring these buildings in 1951, beginning with the horse stable. The armory, I think about 1973, and the administration building in 2020. The original 1916 armory burned in the 1940s and was replaced in the early 1950s. If this is the same building, its appearance has been dramatically altered. In a 2008 report prepared by a historic preservation consulting firm for the Iowa Army National Guard said this about the horse stable, and I quote, "This building has been relatively well preserved by virtue of its long use, primarily as a furniture warehouse by the school district. As such, it now appears to be the best preserved example of a guard horse stable in the state, and since it is the only known freestanding example, it quite likely is the sole or one of a very few surviving examples of this type." Quote. Also quoting this report, recommendations from the statewide Iowa National Guard study proposed that any locally built pre-World War II armory was probably National Register eligible due to its relative rarity as a reflection of the golden years of the Iowa National Guard, the early years of the 20th century, when communities built armory buildings for their local guard units. This armory is National Register eligible, at least on a state level, due to its being the only known multi-building artillery armory prototype in the state and quite possibly the nation. Close quote. And it goes on from there. I know there is a huge expense in upkeep and maintenance, but these are historical buildings with one, the armory, greatly changed. I'm sure the remaining 2 buildings will be demolished. After all, we've got to have parking. But if possible, some of us museum volunteers would like to visit to possibly obtain photographs, artifacts, and maybe some of the horse rings that we understand are still in the horse stable. As a side note, in doing some research on this, it was discovered that in 2013, the Richardson Sloan Special Collections of the Davenport Public Library obtained the original architectural drawings of the 3 original 1916 buildings. There are 13 drawings, each over 40 inches long. You should go down and ask to see them. They are priceless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or?
Sorry, we can't take questions and we can't make a comment
Thank you.
unless it's on the agenda. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I went backwards, so sorry, when I did student board, I skipped the board reports. So, anybody have a board report? Director Beck.
The Violins of Hope project that's been touring around Iowa. This is a group that has collected violins that were owned by people largely in Europe in World War II. Many of them were originally owned by people who were sent to concentration camps, and the violins were either passed down or sold and then rediscovered. So they've restored a number of these. There are several on display at the Figge Museum. They went and visited Sudlow and Central, and the QC Symphony Orchestra did a performance honoring as part of this program over the weekend. And because of the relationship between the QC Symphony and Davenport, Central students, I think any Davenport student, but Central students in particular, Sudlow students can go for free to the symphony. They just have to register by a certain day, and their parents can get tickets for $5. Anyone else that they want to bring. But it was a phenomenal performance. Some of the violins were being played. They had some on display. They also had the University of Iowa Special Collections there at the Adler. So it was just a really wonderful opportunity. I think there's some also on display at the German American Heritage Center right now. But it was just a wonderful opportunity, and I was really happy to see a number of students of all ages there from a variety of our schools to take it in.
Thank you. Director Poston.
Since last meeting, I was able to visit Truman and Walcott on coaching visits. Again, just like the other coaching visits that I made, I was impressed with the teachers adapting to the new curriculum and the coaches providing support to those teachers. I also visited Bluegrass and Buffalo schools. Want to thank the staff for their enthusiasm and dedication. And I would also like to recognize Dale Moses for all the volunteer time he puts into the Bluegrass School greenhouse. Students are benefiting from all activities involved in the greenhouse. They were growing, growing romaine lettuce, tomatoes, flowers, and the greenhouse was packed. There wasn't hardly room to move around in there, and Mr. Moses has done a lot of unique things in there as far as being able to grow these plants. And then another thing, President Klein Jerome and I attended the Tate Scholarship that was presented to a West High senior, Haley Hansen. This scholarship is a $24,000 scholarship spread over 4 years. I know Haley is a very deserving young lady. And then after that presentation, and Superintendent Schneekloth was there also. But after that presentation, Principal Williams took President Klein Jerome and myself around, and we visited CTE classrooms and got to look at, see what's going on currently in CTE.
Anybody else? I also, I am being president. I'm on the board for the Davenport School Museum, and I attended a meeting recently. It's always interesting to see everything that's going on down there. I attended 3 Heart of Excellence Award presentations, and if you want to feel good, go see one of those presentations. The people are so overwhelmed by the fact that their colleagues have nominated them and that they have earned this award, and they will be coming to the board meeting in the near future. I went to North High's musical Legally Blonde last weekend, and this weekend I will be going to Central, Into the Woods, and West High doing music band. So you should get out and support our students in fine arts and the theaters because it is very enjoyable. Okay, next up. Now I'm back on track, hopefully. Consent agenda.
Madam President,
Director Hayes,
I move the board accept the consent agenda as written.
could I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Committee reports, breaking barriers,
Not at this time.
legislative advocacy.
We've been busy the last couple of weeks making a lot of contacts with legislators. There's been a lot of legislation coming in last minute affecting education, and so we continue to lobby our legislators.
Elziak.
I was unable to attend, so Director Barnes will.
I was unable to attend, but LCAC did meet on Friday. Superintendent?
Yes, we had a very engaging presentation about our SEL curriculum. We shared some data points, got some feedback from our LZAC committee that will help feed our long range plan.
Thank you. Long range facility planning.
I don't have any report.
We saw it tonight. Policy committee met. We have gotten through all the 300s on the 5-year review, so that's a plus, and you'll see that tonight. Recognition committee, as I said, they presented the third quarter awards. So there's still time if you're out there, if you've got a colleague that you want to nominate. We will do this again at fourth quarter. And finance.
We met last Thursday. We went over the bond summary report, reviewed the fiscal year 27 budget calendar. We looked at the audit contract renewal, and then went over and reviewed our key measure and monthly report, which Kevin will report on.
And next up is Kevin.
Okay. Stacy, would you go to just the monthly report on the down on the committee reports right there? We'll start with the monthly report. Okay, this is through the month of February. We're getting down to that crunch time. When we get done with April or March at the end of this month, things will start to really speed up. What I wanted to point out on this one is, if you'll notice our total revenue for FY26, we're extremely close to what FY25 was at this point in time. We're finally getting back to a normal cadence. ESSER funds kind of ballooned and made it look disproportionate. So now we're starting to see some consistency. But when you look at the expenditures, we're also very close. However, what I wanted to point out, you see that negative 11 million. That's how much more we spent year to date versus what we've taken in. What I caution people on is this is why we watch our solvency. We need to remain solvent in these months. We do not get our tax money until the following month or in April. So we need to make sure that we have enough cash on hand to meet our bills. Districts get caught on this at this time of year to be able to make their payrolls and pay their bills. But we are doing just fine because you can see that we have just under $40 million in the bank, even with that deficit at this point in time. On page 2 of that, I just wanted to point out on the expenditure side, our other funds, that is our capital project funds. It doesn't say capital projects funds, but that's what that is. It shows that we have a remaining balance. Just scroll down just a hair more, please. It shows that we have a $16.5 million balance. That is getting very close to that first 80 million. That second 80 million has not hit our books as of the end of February. It will as of the end of March. So that's going to get skewed when we look at it for the end of March. And on the internal service fund, you'll see that we are $826,000 deficit. It was over $1 million the last couple months, so it's been coming down. We keep an eye on that. It's healthy. It's got over $21 million balance in there. That's also why when we look at what we've done for our insurance increases, where we take small bites year over year to make sure that that stays healthy. Without doing those bites, that 800,000 continues to be a much bigger negative number going forward. So we're very, very conscientious of watching that. Any questions on the monthly report? Okay, we'll go to the key measures report. This one's it's almost boring, but it looks, to me, it's exciting. You'll see that our UAB, the budget was projected to be at 18.7. It's trending to 18.9. I can't get it much closer than that. That's healthy. It's a good spot to be in. You'll see that our amount that we're spending of our authority, we're at 99%. We're so close to being right at that 100% mark. We're doing right spot on where we need to be. And you can see our solvency. While it was over 20%, we talk about our cash reserve and how we haven't been able to cash reserve. We won't be able to next year. We'll talk about that in the presentation. But you can see it's now getting to under 20%. I, being more conservative, like to see that as close to 20% as possible to be able to make those. But being in that 18% range and that 17 and down to 15 is absolutely fine. Just know we watch that to make sure that we remain solvent. And the second page on that, I'm going to tie this into something you're going to see a little bit later tonight as well. You see our variances. I want to point out the 4 categories: instruction, support services, non-instruction, and other. There'll be a quiz after this because these terms are going to come up again when we look at our FY27 budget presentation. You see that we're trending negative on our instruction and support services. Once we get closed for the month of March, I'll get a better estimate of where we're going to be. This will determine whether we need to do an amendment to our current year budget. That isn't required to be done until the end of May. So I wanted to get as many days and as much in of known expenditures before I start looking at doing an amendment. An amendment does not change anything. It doesn't change the tax levies. It doesn't change anything. It just informs the public that we're going to spend more than what we projected a year plus back from today. Any questions on the key measures?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Next up are items requiring action. Could I have a motion on the Wood River Energy 228E contract extension?
Madam President,
Director Beck.
sorry. I move the board approve the district to participate in the Local Government Risk Pool 28E agreement for the time period of July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027. This will be paid from the district management funds.
Second.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Director Beck.
Just one, the current energy prices have been rising pretty quickly. Does this says it stabilizes prices not only for us but many other districts in the state. Will it be more expensive next year because generally speaking prices are going to be up, but this kind of mitigates that a little bit, or is this a number where we're
This number is actually less than it was last year.
okay?
And I don't know where it will end up next year. I think it's a little too early to predict where it's going to fall going forward, but actually this number is less than what it was the year before.
Okay, how do they set it? It's just spread over all the districts?
Yeah, so these companies buy gas when it's cheap, and previous to the Iran thing happening, prices were pretty far down.
Okay.
So I assume they were purchasing well in advance and lowering those prices for us.
Okay, so we might see some spikes next year, maybe.
We might see a little bit, but it's hard to say for sure.
Okay, 2 years.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up is the Riverbend Transit Contract Renewal. Could I have a motion?
Madam President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the Riverbend Transportation Contract in the total amount of $423,808 for the 26-27 school year $428,046 for the 27-28 school year, and $432,322 for the 28-29 school year.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Director Poston, could I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, move that the football field at Walcott School be named Dennis Johns Field.
And could I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Director Poston.
So first of all, I would just like to read the abstract that was presented to us. Dennis Johns was a teacher, coach, and mentor at Walcott School for over 36 years, leaving a lasting impact on thousands of students and student athletes. Coach Johns consistently coached successful teams that were grounded in discipline, teamwork, and character. While he was known as a football coach, his influence spanned many athletic realms. He coached boys basketball for 16 seasons, girls basketball for 8 seasons, and track for 15 seasons. Dennis played an integral role in the steering committee for Title IX, ensuring equity and access in interscholastic sports for all students. In honor of Coach John's coaching success, for the profound impact that he had on student athletes and families in the Walcott community, and for the lasting footprint that he made on athletics with the Davenport Community Schools, there's overwhelming support to name Walcott football field in Coach Dennis Johns' honor. Mr. Johns was my 9th grade football coach. And that particular year was the first year that Walcott was part of the Davenport district. So our first venture into tackle football was a team of 13 players. And so needless to say, everybody was playing both ways. But again, appreciate what he did for not only the school, but for all the student athletes, and very well deserving.
Superintendent?
I would like to echo the comments that Vice President Poston has said. I know that Coach is listening online right now in Texas. And I'm going to try and channel my energy from all the years of anybody that has ever been coached by Mr. Johns. But his greatest gift was he had the ability to see you at your fullest potential. He didn't see a 145-pound dripping wet TJ Schneckloff. He saw what he could potentially be and pushed me and anyone else that was on his team through discipline, hard work, to be the best of your ability. And he has this smile that he's larger than life human being, and he has this smile that when he looks at you, you believe him when he tells you those things. And so there's a reason why we expedited this one. It's not a discussion and an action item. And so I urge the board to highly consider passing this tonight, as it would be an excellent way to honor Coach Johns. And Coach, if you're listening, there's a whole bunch of people that wrote in on this one. And so a great honor to have your name on the field at Walcott. Thank you.
My first year of teaching at Walcott, I was the girls' chaperone for the basketball team that Denny coached. I learned a lot about basketball that year and had a great time. So this is well-deserved for him. So I'd like to have everybody applaud for him. If he is listening, I'm hoping. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, North High New Athletic Auxiliary Gym Bleachers Project. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board award the North High New Athletics Auxiliary Gym Bleachers Project to the lowest responsive bidder H21 group in the amount of $55,358.
Could I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Dr. Barnes?
What happens in the new auxiliary gym that is, I mean, are there two competitions happening in the main gym and the auxiliary gym simultaneously that
Good question.
we
And
need
yes,
new stands?
yeah, you can definitely do multiple events at the same time. You can do tournaments. Let's say you have a volleyball tournament, for example. You could be running 3 different gyms at the same time. With our current setup, with these bleachers, you could fit around 190, 200 people in those bleachers. So you're obviously not looking at a championship game between our varsity teams, but if you're running a tournament, you might have 3-4 games going on at the same time. This is a gym we can use for that now.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, may I have a motion on the North High furniture purchase?
Madam President,
Director Hayes?
I move the Board award the North High School Furniture Purchase Phase 1 to Duet Resource Group in the amount of $338,936.64.
Could I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Dr. Barnes?
Is this included in the overall project budget for North, or is this separate? Is this part of FFE? I mean, are we approving an additional amount, or are we just approving this invoice that is a part, or this bid that's a part of the overall project cost?
It's the former. It is part of the cost of the entire project.
Okay, I think that's really important to point out, that this is not an additional figure, but this was calculated in the overall approval for the project.
We call it a below the line things. We have the architect and Bruce builders, and then we have all the stuff that we have to use to equip it.
Yep.
And you'll see a lot of those coming forward here in the next few months to get furnishings for Smart, Sudlow, all of those. So you're going to see this exact type thing coming, and we have it all budgeted out in those bond funds.
I think, at least for my benefit and perhaps for the benefit of our community, understanding that this was part of the initial approval for overall cost, and that this is just FFE that's part of it. So thank you.
I also would like to point out this is just the first portion of the purchase, because there'll be more down the road. This is for the lunchroom, cafeteria area, and the administration area that would be finished first. And like your science, your classrooms, all that stuff, there'll be another purchase for that later.
Any other questions? Director Beck?
This is sort of a general question for these types of things going forward. Who decides what, like, have we had test chairs? Did anybody sit in these? Do we have tables like this already? Who does that?
Students, staff, employees, everybody. I mean, there's rooms we
They
get
try
set
it
up.
out.
Yep, we get them set up and we bring people in, try them out, see what people like the best, go from there.
Awesome.
Anybody else? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Director Beck, policies for board approval. I won't sing like Bruce does.
Yeah. I move the board approve policy 506.01, policy 300, 301.01, 302.02, 302.03, 302.04, 302.05, 302.06, 302.07, 302.08, 303.03, 303.04, 303.06, 303.07, 303.08, 303.09, 304.01, 304.02, 304.04, 305, and 202.02.
Could I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? No, but I'd like to say, whew, thank you. Director Poston.
So most of these are a 5-year review, and then there's one that's an annual review. So why do we have an annual, and why do we have a 5-year?
The state says that some of these have to, I think we have 6 that are on annual review.
We're moving to get them all at the same time of year, hopefully, if we can. Because we do some of them, like the Title IX people, those are annual review type policies.
So, but the rest of them are on the 5-year cycle. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And finally, receipt and filing of recommendations regarding termination of employment contract. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Director Beck.
I move the board to receive and file the superintendent's recommendation to terminate a continuing employment contract.
Could I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up are policies for board review. Because these policies had some change from what we currently had, we bring them as a review and then they will be voted on. So are there any questions about these policies? Okay, these will come back for a vote. Budget. Kevin.
While Kevin's getting started, where we sit today, this is a culmination of a process that starts really in filling station day, which is a landmark for us in the end of December, where nothing new is added to our budget. Then we meet on a regular cadence internally, and then meet with our board finance committee to make projections into the future, and it aligns us here. I do kind of want to share a celebration that was made at cabinet this morning about the procedures that we have inside of our district to try and be as transparent as possible and to forecast at all possible. And this is a very important part of our process where we look where are we going, and forecast into the future to do so. And Kevin, you've done an outstanding job getting us to this spot, ensuring that we're staying on task. There's a lot of work that goes into this, and it's much appreciated.
Can I pause a minute? Does anybody need a break? Okay, could we have a 5-minute break? Thank you. I thought we have to sit here a long time. Hey, do you watch that clock?
Yes.
I'm like, man, this is going forever.
Okay, this is the big question. What does that picture represent? You got three choices. Is that a cache as it's kind of feathered out? Is it a VHS tape, or does it look like a double-headed combine? We were debating that Thursday. We weren't sure. It's supposed to be cash, but TJ and Director Poston had two other looks at that. So what we're going to go over today is we're going to cover our funds that are revenue and expenditure. So there's a little bit of a cadence to this presentation. We'll look at those funds as their actual FY25, re-estimated FY26, and our budgeted for FY27, because that's what we're really after, is what our budget's going to be. The reason I do that is because what has been published in the paper last week is the actual FY25, re-estimated 26, and the FY27. So this presentation shows those side by side, and there's a couple different graphs that you can see. I will show you the published budget. It's a lot of numbers, and there's only going to be a few items on there that I will point out that are discrepancies that look like it's an odd number. At the end of the day, this budget shows a $12.97 tax levy. What we did at the first meeting tonight showed a $13.07. That was before the state said they're going to fund our budget guarantee. So that was with our budget guarantee. When you take the budget guarantee off, it's approximately 9 cents that comes off our tax levy. So it's lower than what was even published for that first hearing tonight. We'll cover all funds, and then we'll go into each fund individually. The other point is what you see published is not all the different funds, so you need to see what is the makeup of that. What gets published is all funds combined, minus our self-insurance fund. So with that, what are our district's major fund revenue types? General fund is self-explanatory. Debt is very self-explanatory. That's our two bond issuances that we have. Our capital fund comprises three things. It's our capital projects fund that we just talked about. It's our PEPL and our SAVE. All other fund types are...
Kevin, will you put that in present mode, please? Just hit the three dots in the upper right-hand corner. The board members can see it better. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So can you see that a little bit better? The all other fund types consist of, I have to look because I'll forget one. It's our activity fund, our management fund, our food and nutrition fund, and our after school funds. The activity and management fund are also what we call a special revenue fund. You're going to see that special revenue fund show up in this presentation. The food nutrition and our after school fund are enterprise funds because they self-support themselves. There's no tax dollars or anything that goes into those. Two funds that are never on, we're going to look at them, but they are never on our budget that we are approving, is our internal service fund, which is our self-insurance fund, and the agency fund. You remember when we had TPRA? We were the fiscal agent for it, so there's some funds sitting out there on that side of it. Those are not part of the budget that we're going to be approving in 2 weeks from today. This also tells you, when we talk about our monthly report, almost 68% of our budget goes to the general fund. Why do we focus mostly on our general fund? That is exactly why. The other funds are just as important that we consider those, that we look at those and understand where we're at with those. So going forward, oops, now I'm going too fast. Our revenue budget comparison from 25, 26, and 27, you can see how this makeup is. The one thing I wanted to point out, in total, you look at FY26, that increase in that gray bar is because of that $80 million that we just received last month. The 25 and 27 are more normal of what we see for revenue. And what are our major expense type funds? Again, same categories. I don't have to repeat what are in those funds. And it's also why 55%, usually it's much more than 55%, but when we have that $80 million and we got some major projects going on, our capital fund, this is usually a lot smaller. This general fund is a lot bigger. That's why we focus more on the general fund. However, when we talk about capital, we look at that on a regular basis to make sure that where we're at, and you notice I always point that out in our capital projects fund of where our balance is. That will be zero, and this will start to get much smaller. But again, 55% of your whole budget is in your general fund, and we spend that much time on it. So, and this is the fund, the expense comparison for those funds. You can see that there's an increase in FY27. Again, that's because of our bonds that we're spending. Our general fund is pretty flat. There's a very gradual increase, but when you increase wages and benefits, that's pretty natural of what that's going to be. And that capital and that much lighter blue is what's making that look like it's a much higher. So now we're going to go strictly into the general fund. Here's our revenue comparison, and you can see we are much more state dependent on state aid than we are local taxes. Property rich districts will have less state aid and more taxes, but we have a pretty good blend. A 60-30 split is not too bad. Local tends to be property taxes, interest income, miscellaneous fees and things that we collect. State is generally your state aid and your categorical funds. Federal is mostly your title funds that we receive, and the other would be just other miscellaneous income. When we look at our revenue comparison, so now this is the 3-year comparison, you can see this is very flat. It's kind of boring, but it's like we're clicking along pretty much where we believe we should be. And you can see the 27 proposed budget. The other thing that we do when we look at expenditures, we look at it by object. If you remember, you look at that monthly report, you see the salaries and benefits, you see purchase services, you see those categories. Here's those same type of categories that we use. You can see salaries and benefits sitting at 80%. That's very typical for a school district. Again, that's why we spend most of our time when we talk about increases to our budget, decreases to our budget, just changes. Salaries and benefits are going to drive everything. Spending a lot of time on purchase services, we're very purposeful on that, but the others really don't move the needle when we start making budget decisions, especially when you're in potentially a reduction mode and declining enrollment. And you can see how those play out. This is the same thing, same numbers, but just looking at it by function. Remember that last one is by object. This one's by function. The reason we have it both ways is on a monthly basis, we look at our objects because that's easier to understand. But when we do our budget, our actual approved budget, it's by a functional category. So instruction is your teachers, your classroom teachers, the supplies that go into those, your building budgets, those type of things. Support service is a very large bucket of miscellaneous things. I have to cheat to look at this, but this would include things like your nurses, your counselors, your teacher librarians, and all their related expenses. It also includes your general administration. It includes your curriculum staff, your school administration, meaning your principals, your business and central administration, the board's expenses, finance, HR, the superintendent, plant operations, and transportation. That's a lot for $79 million. So you will see this broken down when you see the budget that's in the paper. The reason the facilities and construction is zero, I put it there because we don't pay for construction out of the general fund. That comes out of your PEPL, your SAVE, and our capital projects funds. You do not want to build buildings with your general fund. We won't do that. It also tells you why when people say, why are you reducing staff when you're building buildings? This is why. These buckets do not intermix. This is our operating budget. It's not our capital projects budget.
And just a clarification on that. So, any construction management cost, any of Josh's time, all of that is going to show up in support services, and
Yes.
and is not attributed or is not allocated towards the construction projects.
Correct.
Because we do have an additional investment in construction management just while we are an administrative investment while we're doing these large projects, and that's showing up in support services rather than in the project budgets.
The construction manager that we hired
Yeah.
temporarily is
Yeah.
actually coming out of the bond.
Okay.
We have that built into the bond.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody? Director Beck?
Just to clarify, but Josh would be considered support staff because he's part of the
Correct.
district all the time.
Correct.
Okay. And no one should have facilities and construction in their general operating funds, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And the other,
TLC? Well, I got a question. TLC, is that coming out of support services?
yes.
Okay.
That's why I say it's a very big bucket. When we get to what we published, you're going to see those lines, and I'll open that one after this presentation, and you'll see, oh, I see how those flow. It'll be much more clear when you see that. The other is AEA flow-through services. It still has that number in there. I've been predicting that this is going to change the way they're funding the AEA flow-through, but as it sits now, it sits in that other category. And here is your general fund operating by function of the 3-year comparison. You can see it's pretty stable. There's a little bit of an increase there. The one thing I want to note why FY27 looks like an increase, these are $50 million increments on this chart. So it's really deceiving a little bit because you can't really see it move a lot. When I project our budget that we publish, this is our published budget, I have to inflate expenditures so I don't get so close to where, oh, we're spending less. I don't want to go too high, but I want to go high enough where we can avoid having to do an amendment. Sometimes I don't hit those 4 categories that I mentioned earlier exactly. Sometimes it's a timing thing, sometimes it's other things. But these are the FY27 proposed budget on the expenditure side is inflated a little bit reasonably to make sure to try and avoid having that amendment going forward. And here's our fund balance comparison. This shows quite a decline. It's just kind of the trend. We're watching that. We know that our general fund is coming down because we have not been able to cash reserve. That's why I say there's going to come a day when we need to cash reserve again. I know I've said that many times, but just anybody in the public listening, knowing that $12.97 is very low for what our typical district has had. I showed you that 2 weeks ago when we talked about our 5-year projection. You could see where we came from and where we're going on the tax levy. So that's just indicative of what's happening with our solvency ratio. You'll see that pick up in 28 and 29. You'll start to have a little bit ability to cash reserve. Debt service. This is all yellow because it's all other. It's how you pay your debt. I'll show you that. It's not really even a slide worth showing, but at least it shows you that, hey, we had debt service of remaining debt service for a partial year that we had to have, but we are going to have to move. This is going to be approximately $13 million a year. This is consistent because it's a little over $6 million for the first bond and $6 million for the second bond. So we have to move those funds and have it in debt service at the end of the year for the following year payment. This is revenue side. On the expense side, this looks a little crazy, but we don't have the second bond. Even though we received the bond this year, we don't pay the $6 million worth of the bond repayment. We don't pay that until 27. So that's why actual 25 and actual 26, that's the bond that we purchased in 2024. So we'll be 2 years into that bond before we start paying the second bond. This is going to be more normal going forward. And this is the You can see what's happening with revenues, expenditures. It's going to come up here and flatline, and this is the way it's going to roll out, unless you do another bond issuance or something like that. But if this stays consistent, you'll see that flatten out going forward. Next is our capital projects funds on the revenue side. The other is what that $80 million bond, $87 million bond that we receive funds for. State tends to be property taxes. Remember, this is PEPL, SAVE, and capital projects. So 25 and 27 are pretty normal. 26 is an anomaly because of that bond. If you were to put 24 in here, it would look a lot like 26. It's just when we issued those bonds and when we received the cash. Local would tend to be property taxes. State would be, I misspoke. Local's property taxes. The state would be the sales tax revenue that we receive. And on the expenditure side, a lot of purchase services, it comes through as purchase services when we're paying Bill Bruce Builders, for example, or someone like that, or Bray Architect. It's considered a purchase service. The other expenses and tended to be, and I was looking at this today, it says other expenses and other uses. It seems a little repetitive. Other uses are transfers out. So this is the transfer out from SAVE to debt service. And the other expenses are things like the technology that we'd purchase, the vehicles that we would purchase, just other equipment that we would purchase with PEPL, SAVE, and some of the below the line capital projects. This is where this is capital fund. Remember, all three funds combined it kind of shows it coming down, but that's because of the bond, and we're going to be buying that capital projects fund down. This will start to even out in that we receive approximately $9 to $10 million a year in our PEPL funds, and it's about 18 million. So it'll come down to this 27 million line going forward. But you just got some anomalies with when we receive the funds and when we're spending the dollars. Special revenue. I mentioned special revenue earlier in this presentation. Special revenue are two funds. It's activity and management fund. We break those out separately when we look at those on the months. You can see activity fund is self-supporting through fees and collections. Management fund is property tax. Management fund is much bigger. It's kind of the driver of this. Our management fund, we've been getting a larger balance in it, but we also know that insurance prices go up quite a bit. Property insurance, workman's comp goes up. We know we need to bring that down. We know it's going to be forced on us legislatively going forward, but we were able to make sure we have a high balance to begin with, and you can see it's starting to come down a little bit on a lot closer as far as we've padded our revenue a little bit in 25 and 26. We're doing much less of that going forward. Proprietary fund, I mentioned that as well. That's our food nutrition and our after school fund. The driver is this food nutrition. It's the vast majority. This also has a little bit of a downward climb. That is done on purpose because of the balances that the Bureau of Food Nutrition saw that we had in our food nutrition fund was higher than what they were hoping to have, and they wanted us to buy that down. We also know there's going to be a few items that we buy in 3 serving kitchens between North, Sudlow, and Smart that this fund is going to pay for. So we purposely kept that high enough so that when we do have to buy those things that fund can buy, we don't have to use the capital projects funds for it. While it has a high enough balance, we're using these funds for things that are appropriate. The things that you saw tonight would be like the cafeteria tables. You cannot use food nutrition for cafeteria tables. So we know what you can and can't do in those funds.
How soon will they be purchasing those and bringing this down? Those big items.
Those big items will be probably
end of the month.
End of this
North will be at least ordered. We'll probably pay for them early in FY27. in July and August. Probably late fall will be Sudlow, and Smart's going to be right behind it, probably towards the end of FY27. So a lot of it's going to come out of fiscal year 27. There could be some stuff that flips over to FY28, depending on when Smart opens.
So it's going to come down fast enough that they're not going to be concerned we have this high? Okay.
No, they'll be
Josh,
happy
you
with
think
knowing
it's
it.
coming sooner than later?
There's a big purchase coming with all the buildings all at one time. You're coming very soon.
Okay.
Most of the food nutrition stuff do not come out of this fund, but what we can do, we will. And lastly, internal service fund. Again, this is not part of the budget that you're approving on the 27th, but it's important to note, I mentioned it tonight where we're at with our fund balance. You can see we're trying to keep these revenues and expenditures really, really tight. We don't want to overcharge staff or overcharge our general fund for our health insurance, health and dental insurance. So we're trying to keep this as tight as possible, and that's a pretty good line to be on. We don't want it to go up a lot because then we'd be putting too much in there that we could be putting towards salaries and other salaries. And we don't want it to come down too fast to where you have a year where you have to really, really increase your benefits. So we're keeping a close eye on that. I went really fast through that. I really want to get to the other slide that is what's posted in the paper. If there's any questions on this of a slide, I'll keep this up if there's any right now.
Director Barnes.
I don't know that I'm asking a precise question. The expenditure by fund group, you have 4 categories: general, debt, which I assume is debt service,
yes,
capital, and other. Just for my own edification, capital would include SAVE, PEPL, and our bond proceeds.
Yes.
And so the bond proceeds are being counted as capital expenditure. And even though there's a relationship to those bond funds with debt.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Yes.
So maybe at some point it might be helpful for, again, maybe just for me to understand what the trajectory of that capital looks like relative to the SAVE amount, the PEPL amount, and the capital. Just, it looks like that's what's driving this increase here, and understanding that it's 3 different and it's not just all the bond proceeds.
It's kind of blown up, kind of like what happened with our ESSER funds, but that was in a much smaller look. But this blows it up a lot more when you're talking $80+ million, and then you're spending it a little bit. You're spending it a little bit later, so it.
Well, the commingling of the I think 3 categories, right? PEPL, bond, and SAVE. It would probably be useful to know what's sort of flat and what is a result of or being driven by the bond. So.
Well, to confuse things even more, this is what went in the paper. And there's only a few lines I want to point out. So this is every single fund combined minus the internal service fund and the other fund that we had for TPRA. This is the Department of Management's form. The things I want to point out, I'm going to note these by these line numbers. Line number 5 is earnings on investments. A lot of these are because of our capital projects coming in here. I'm very conservative in that number in bringing that down. This is why there's legislation out there that I'm very concerned about, that we want to be able to maximize our earnings on investments. And I don't want to be limited in that other than what we are allowed to invest in. So this is coming down purposefully because we know we're going to spend the rest of the first $80 million is almost gone. The second $80 million we have, but we're going to be spending that real quick between the 3 big projects that we're doing. So I don't expect to have that money in the bank that long as compared to the first $80 million. We have a much clearer path on that. That's why this is a little bit lower. It looks weird when, to me, this is kind of a left-handed report. I would rather have it 25, 26, 27, but for 27, you expect those numbers to be a little bit higher across the board. Some of the state aid is higher because it's property tax relief that's going on. The other one that I wanted to point out is line 11, this instructional support state aid. This is where the state says we can't afford to continue doing instructional support. That's been gone since the 90s, but it stays in there until the state takes action to take the instructional support state aid away from us. The other is long-term debt proceeds. Here's that $88 million coming in this year, and the transfers in. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit so you can see the transfers in here. This is Director Barnes, where you're asking that question. It's like we're moving money from one fund to another. These are it in total, so it's in that $13 million range. Transfer, and it also includes what we charge food nutrition for overhead costs. But you can see the transfers out are identical, and that's in that other category. And we talk about what area of the budget we're in. So that's where some of the confusion lies. This makes it more confusing because it's everything combined. So this is the revenue side where it says total resources above that. When you get to the bottom, I want to share with you, remember the 4 categories I talked about? This is why we talk about functions when we talk about expenditures. There's 4 lines. It's instruction, total support services, non-instructional, and other. The instruction is what self-explanatory. It's your teachers in the classroom. But here's where that, Karen, you asked about all these different categories. This is pretty self-explanatory. You can see student support services. That's your counselors, your nurses, instructional support staff services, probably your TLCS lies, your general admin, your school admin, your business. I wanted to point out this business one that it looks like it goes up a lot. Remember, we have to pay for our bond issuance fees. So that's why that's in there. I probably need to put it in re-estimated 26, but we'll be okay there. Your plant operation and maintenance and your transportation, that's a large number of different functions that we have that equal our total support services. They don't make it really easy to digest that. Non-instructional is mainly your food nutrition program. The facilities acquisition and construction, when you see round numbers, you know those are my estimates. I don't always put down exactly what I think it should be if I don't know the number. So you'll see round numbers because that's an estimate of what we're going to spend. And then your debt service, that'll be probably a little bit less than 13 million. It was 6.1 million for the first bond issuance, so I was projecting another 6 million plus for the second when we have to make that payment. The other is your AEA support services on line 35. That 5.7 million is before the state takes a 20% reduction for AEA services, so they will take that away from us. So that'll be less, but it goes in there that way because that is the calculation that they have, that the Department of Management has currently. So that one looks a little bit off. To me, it does. And the most important part is your proposed property tax rate. This 1297 is where it landed for this following year. This is what you'll see at the next board meeting. If there's any question, this is what went in the paper. If there's any questions that you want me to go through, or maybe between now and the 27th, if you want to know a little bit more, I can break that down a little bit more. Yeah.
I have a question. You said about line 11 that we had 0, 0, and now it's at 445,363. Why were we 0, and then how are we going up?
It's the state has instructional support state aid. They say they can never afford it, so they take it away from us every year until the state takes action and the bill becomes a law, it goes, Department of Management puts it in there.
So they make you put it in there, but they're going to take it away.
Yes.
Oh, that makes a whole lot of sense.
You can afford to, I shouldn't say it. TJ says no. You can afford other things that they fund, but they can't afford to do this, and they haven't done this for more than 20 years.
Then why don't they just strike that line out of there?
They don't want to make it look like a permanent reduction. What's that?
A permanent
A permanent reduction?
Director Beck.
I guess the one thing I would want to know, just I know for my purposes, is the property tax rate, the actual that was in the previous years, right? Because I know
Yes.
it fluctuates ever so slightly.
We had a significant decrease for this one.
But it would be nice to see what it was compared to now. If you can put that in there somewhere.
I can put that in as
in our notes.
as an attachment for the next board
No, I know
meeting.
you can't put it in this document.
Correct.
But like just for the next meeting. That's what I meant. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say, the other thing I'll say, while I was looking at this afternoon, of that $12.97, you, the board, have control over $3.14 of that. Everything else is driven by the formula. You have the management fund levy, the instructional support levy, any cash reserve, which we have none, and your 33-cent board elected annual PEPAL. That's all you have control of. Everything else is formula driven when it comes to the property tax rate.
To your question, Dr. Beck, I think it's also really important for us to look at what we're projecting it to be as well.
Yes.
So we have those.
I have that slide. Yes.
We can easily put that in a Friday report or wherever it will be, but it's important to know that the situation that we're in is generating this rate, and it will not stay there. But what we're trying to do is, it's never the level of, it's the leveling of.
Correct.
So we're trying to prevent giant swings in it. We're trying, like you said, slight adjustments.
Yeah. I just caution, knowing that this 1297 is artificially low. We have to stay the course and make sure when we do need the cash reserve and we need to do the things that we can control, that we need to be able to understand that we need to do that and be able to explain it to the community when that comes. It's important.
Can you just repeat how much of that 12,977 we control?
You control about $3.14 of that 1297. I will post another document that shows that tax breakout that equates to that 1297, and I'll have it highlighted so you can see the markings up of it for the 27th meeting. The rest of it's formula driven.
Anybody else?
All right. Thank you.
Next up, tuck pointing at Garfield Elementary. Josh.
This isn't very exciting in the scheme of things of all the stuff we've talked about tonight, but Garfield Elementary needs some tuck pointing. Tuck pointing's basically repairing of bricks and mortar on buildings. So the upper portion of Garfield, parapet wall and coping stone, which is right up on top of the building. If you ever look at the top of a building from where your roof deck is, that wall that goes up above is your parapet wall, and the cap that goes on top of that is a coping stone. That building needs some repairs done to that part of the building. There's water leaking and infiltrating into the building. We just need to fix it. So this is the amount of money that we need to make those repairs.
Questions? I have a question. It's all built at the same time, but why just parts of it? Why doesn't all of it need tuck pointing?
A lot of things. It could be rain, it could be wind, sunshine, different things like that. Sometimes when they mix that material, it can be different material that day. Like, if they just mix it just a little bit different. So,
okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else? Director Beck.
To that point, is it more economical just to tuck point the whole thing if the building's going to have to stand for a lot longer?
You could tackle the whole thing. A building like that can substantially increase our budget, so we're trying to stay within what we have for budget numbers. But I believe the rest of the building's in okay shape where we feel okay about it.
It'll last.
Yes, it'll last for a while at least.
Okay. I mean,
Okay.
if it's like 5 years from now, it seems kind of silly, but if it's
Yeah, this should clear up problems for the next 10 years or so.
yeah.
Okay, Josh, replacement rooftop unit for the Davenport Learning Center.
So this is your air handling units, so your air conditioning, heating, cooling in the building. So the unit we're looking to replace on the Davenport Learning Center building, as well as the junior theater building, it's kind of shared, is original to like 1990, so it's 30-ish years old. It's failing at this point. So if we want to provide air conditioning within that building, we need to fix this unit. This is the cost to do that. Any questions?
Director Beck?
Can you guys remind me how long the agreement with the junior theater is for? 5 years?
5
Okay,
years.
thank you.
Anybody else? Naming of West High Media Center for Patricia Sheehy. Superintendent.
The faculty and staff of the alumni of Davenport West High School have submitted the appropriate documentation to name the library at West High the Patricia Sheehy Media Center. I'm going to read the blurb just like Vice President Paulchen did earlier. Miss Patricia Sheehy has been an integral part of Davenport West High School for an impressive 57 years, dedicating 51 of those years to teaching language arts within the very walls of this institution. Her influence has inspired countless students to pursue other education, and many former students and colleagues still encounter her at West, whether she is collecting tickets at sporting events, volunteering at the Nest, or mentoring aspiring educators in their final stages of training. Additionally, she dedicates her free time to the tutoring of students in Room 100, further exemplifying her commitment to the school community. Naming the Media Center after Patricia Sheehy would be a fitting tribute to a truly remarkable and inspiring individual. Very similar comments to Coach John's. Miss Sheehy, I think, has taught almost everybody in the West End to write a beautiful paragraph and do a research paper, and did it with style and grace. And if you go to any of our sporting events, she'll remember your name. She'll probably be taking tickets outside the soccer game or at the baseball games. She exemplifies what it means to be a Falcon. She sees the best in people, and what an honor it would be to have her name inside of one of our facilities.
I also had her as a teacher when I went to West. I still remember what research paper I wrote in her class. And yeah, you don't get very many people who have committed over 51 years in teaching. So the other thing that caught my attention as we went through, staff has to sign, they have to have 80%. There's certain criteria they have to meet before they can submit this. And when students saw that, they said, well, we want to sign. Well, that's not really part of it. They signed. I mean, there are pages and pages of students who signed it. That speaks highly of her and the students at West High School. So I thought that was cool. Any other questions, comments? Okay. On to Food and Nutrition Services Commercial Pizza.
All right. I'm going to do my best on this one. Connie usually takes these for me, but she couldn't be here tonight. So they did a bid for the pizza for the district, and Pizza Hut, which is called Hut American Group, won the most points over the assessment of the pizzas. So in this case, we would like to have them provide our pizzas for the 26-27 school year. We also have a secondary pizza we provide, which would be Papa John's as the secondary offering for students that don't like Pizza Hut pizza every year. We have two.
Explain that, though, that you're going to have two. So, like, one day it'll be Pizza Hut, and the next day it would be Papa John's.
Yep. Some days they have one. They like to change it up a little bit. So some students get sick of having the same thing over and over again. So in like high school, they'll change it up once in a while for them.
Okay.
We have two dietitians that are in the district that have master's degrees that do the analysis of this food, and I trust their opinion to be the right one.
Any questions? Director Beck?
Is this, I know, I feel like we just voted on this, but is this the same? I know we've had Papa John's Pizza. Do we currently have the Pizza Hut right now?
Good question. I believe it's Papa John's and Domino's this year,
okay.
but so next year I think this is a new setup.
All right.
There you go. Any other? Oh, superintendent report, not at this time. Thank you. I was like, we've been here forever. Administrative reports, not at this time. Board requests, not at this time. Board reflections, Director Barnes.
I just will very quickly say, Kevin, your presentations on finance are excellent. The visualizations helping, I think, all of us understand and everybody else understand the finances of this district. It's really great for that to not be opaque and to be transparent. So thank you.
Director Yonke.
Just to kind of echo a bit here from Director Barnes, Kevin is always amazing. I always love when he comes forward and shares. I actually feel like I can follow along, so thank you. And I also really enjoyed the brave presentation and our parent who came along to share that information. A lot of great information, and I'm excited to kind of, as a board, to dig into that and have those conversations.
Director Boston.
First of all, I'd like to just mention one thing that I didn't mention in my board report when I was visiting Buffalo School. And Steve Grubbs with Victory Enterprises didn't realize that they are supporting a lot of the things that are going on in the STEM classroom at Buffalo School. I know there's 3D printers and other things there that they provide. They also provide, I think, one of their engineers to come in there certain days. And so I just think this is great. This is a something where a business comes in and becomes a partner for a particular school. So I just wanted to mention that because I forgot that before. The other thing is the FMPC. Again, we had one of parents here tonight. Appreciate everyone that participated in that, and look forward to seeing what the results come of that.
Director Beck.
Yeah, the financial report, I never thought I'd say was a highlight of a meeting. But finally, after like 9 years, I'm finally starting to understand it. That's thanks to you, Kevin. It would have taken me like 15 if it was somebody else. And I also want to thank the Facilities Master Planning Committee. And I just am amazed at how similar everyone's ideas were from all different types of stakeholders, and over time. I also really appreciated our student board member coming tonight and sharing some comments from her perspective as being one of the students on that. So yeah, that's it.
Director Hayes.
So actually a ditto. I enjoyed the facilities management presentation, and I too liked how the student came in and just kind of jumped in and kind of gave her side of how she felt. Kevin is always exciting. I think back to previous years when Gary Sinclair used to come and have us all trying to keep up with what he was saying and understanding it, and how Kevin has come with the forecast now and jumped in where it's like, oh, okay. And it all makes sense now after hearing it, now that you can follow it and understand what's even being said.
Superintendent Schneckloff.
I too am exhilarated by your finance reports, Kevin. I really want to thank you for coming today and sticking around and watching the entire meeting. That was excellent. Your input was awesome throughout the whole process. But probably the most moving things for me are Coach Johns and Miss Sheedy. They're just, you couldn't find two more deserving human beings to have their name carried on forever. So.
Yes, thank you, Kevin. Long Range Facility, both presentations were excellent. I'm excited that we got through so many policies in one shot instead of dragging this out. And the fact that we're going to name the Walcott Field and the library at West of people that I have had contact with, and I know they're well-deserving, both of them. So with that being said, I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I know he wasn't here. And it's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are